Welcome to the Zoe Routh Leadership Podcast, where we explore the future and what this means for your leadership. We ask the big questions. What's happening on the horizon? What does this mean for us? And most importantly, what skills do I need now for leadership of the future? It's time to explore. Let's go.
Hey there, it's Zoe, and welcome to a solo-sode episode. I am just back from my epic 2-week, 200-kilometer bushwalk with some friends of mine on the Australian Alpine Walking Track. So 200 kilometers, 2 weeks. It was amazeballs. So the solo-sode today is, I'll share a few stories of that, but really give you an insight of what it means. How do you actually coexist, co-decision make, and co-lead in such an intense experience, and hopefully some useful insights for you. Coming back out of the woods as I did on Saturday, the 20th of April, it was, okay, what's been happening out there on planet Human? And yes, got all the skullduggery and dismaying updates of, yes, the wars are still going on, terrible things are still happening. And yet it was also a marvelous autumn. The leaves are changing. The world is still beautiful. And that paradox is always so bittersweet, salient, and terrifying and amazing all at the same time. So on Planet Human, lots of terrible things are happening, and there's also some beautiful things happening. Some good news stories is in biotech. Patients with severe liver damage some of them are going through experimental treatment where they're given an injection to grow additional mini liver in lymph nodes. So it's an interesting biotech hack where if you inject some of these, seed cells or stem cells into the lymph nodes, it can grow a kind of a mini liver, which will then be able to boost somebody who has bad liver disease to help their liver function. And it's better than a liver transplant, which depends on another human. It's kind of grown inside your own body. So this is really cool. And this is being developed by Genesis is the name of the company. It has great future applications for other people suffering from similar diseases like kidney disease, etc. So we can grow our own organs. We don't have to wait for somebody else to die in order to survive. So lots of really cool applications coming in the med tech space. So good news for the future of humanity in the short term. If we can just clean up our act elsewhere, that would be even better. On Planet Zoe, apart from resting and recovering my legs and my feet, which are pretty tired, I have to say, after walking 200 kilometers and lots of up and down and through bushes and all sorts, we did in the second week, we did 3.5 days, or actually a bit more, off-track navigation, which means there's no nice trail to follow. We made our own way navigating with map and compass and applications. We did a bit of technology and old school navigation, and it was really fun, but it meant we had to push through tea tree. Sometimes that tea tree coming off Mount Jagungal, for example, was over 2 meters tall, and you couldn't actually see the people coming through behind you. And we have hilarious footage of that in our own personal videos. And there's plenty of photos up on my Facebook page and my Instagram from the trip if you want to have a look at what it looked like. It was an extraordinary adventure. The views are beautiful. It was just stunning. And every day I was so grateful to A, my friends who decided to come with me on this epic adventure, and B, for the wilderness for being so well looked after and surviving all human interventions and experiences, and actually feral animals too. There's plenty of feral pig damage across the high plains and the alpine area, which was pretty sad because you turn up a lot of that fragile environment, it doesn't recover very well. And the brumbies, though they're beautiful, are doing similar damage. So all that beauty and mystery and fabulousness was all wrapped up into 2 fabulous weeks with wonderful people. So let's talk about the lessons and insights. And yay, because my last 2 outdoor adventures as a participant had examples of conflict, and there was no conflict amongst us in the last 2 weeks. Hurrah! You'd think, oh, good, because that could have been a disaster, right? You're out in a remote area, and what happens if you have disagreements or stoushes with another? Well, it just didn't happen for us. This is all about self-organizing horizontal leadership. So a bit of holacracy going on without all the formal implementation of holacracy. So what worked for us? This is what I came to analyze. When you are starting off on a mini project, a 2-week bushwalk is basically a mini project, even though it felt epic. We need to go from inertia to momentum. It sounds like a nice idea. So how do you get beyond that's a nice idea to actually getting down and getting the details in place and actually executing on this thing? To move from inertia to momentum, you need 2 things. First of all is a why. Why do this epic challenge? And apply this to whatever epic challenge you've got going on in your personal or professional world. Let's say you've got a new innovation task or project to get off the ground. And it sounds like a good idea, but it just stays as a good idea. You need a good why. And for us going on this adventure, well, for me, I'll speak for myself, and I know that the others had similar whys. It was going to be fun. It's fun to have an adventure. Adventure is one of my core values. And so that the act of discovery, of seeing what's on the next hill, what's on the next horizon, is something that is so deeply entrenched in me that it's like a thirst that needs to be satiated. It's a hunger that needs to be fed. So that sense of adventure, of discovery, of exploration is hardwired into my DNA. So it's almost like I cannot not do it. I have to do this thing of going to see what is beyond. And luckily, there's some people who want to do it with me. And the other why of doing this is that sense of camaraderie, to hang out with amazing people that you love and enjoy. So all of that wrapped into one helped get us started. The other aspect of this was challenge. So I made a point of asking my friends why they wanted to do this trip. And similar reasons: fun, adventure, camaraderie, and also the question of like, can I actually do it? I'm 53 now, heading to 54, and is my body up to the same level of adventure it was in my 20s? Well, it is up to the challenge, just in a different way. Yeah, you don't bounce back as quickly, I've discovered, and you care a little bit more about pack weight and that kind of thing. And it's easier to thrash your body and have it bounce back in your 20s, whereas you have to manage yourself a little bit better in your 50s. So that can I do it question was also there. And also, can I actually navigate off track? It's been a donkey's age, 20 odd years since I've done that. And are my skills still there? And yes, they are. So that was a good proof of concept or proof of challenge right there. So having a why that is meaningful and powerful is the start to inertia, getting from inertia into momentum. And the second thing you need is a driver. You need someone to say, right, come on, people, let's do this thing. Let's nominate a date. Let's commit to that. What works for people? And so we did that. We had a Zoom call and we said, okay, this is what I think we can do. There's a 2-week block. If you can only do 1 week, this is when you could do it. And this is where we could start and finish. So we had to look at that and what worked and what didn't work for people. And then pretty soon we settled on a date. Then we nominated, actually we didn't even nominate roles. We kind of said, these are the tasks that need to happen, and people elected themselves to that. Some of them were food. What food are we going to eat? How will we share food? We decided that we would look after our own breakfast, lunch, and snacks and share dinners. So 2 people said, okay, well, we'll look after the menu and organize that. And we had a whole bunch of fantastic freeze-dried food. Thank you, Karim and Ali and Lisa, for organizing our beautiful freeze-dried food. It was so good. Think about having salmon and risotto and Japanese poke bowls and fish curry. It was amazing. So food was one element, safety was another. So what was going to be our safety protocol and our safety technology to support us out there should anything go wrong? And first aid, we had support and logistics. How are we going to actually get down there and get back and get food drops? And we had a friend who nominated to be the backup guru goddess. That would be Josie. Thank you, Josie, who would do the behind the scenes work of shifting around our food and meeting us at different points and supporting our adventure. And then there was route planning and navigation, which I took on and mapped out what could be our possible trajectory and kilometers per day. So we had these nominated roles, and people kind of put their hand up for stuff based on interest and availability, etc. So that was the second thing that worked for us. The third thing was when we finally got together and we're about to launch, we divided the gear. So everybody was carrying a share of the collective group gear. We checked in on our health, fitness, and our concerns. So we had an understanding of what our limitations and expectations were, so we could manage all of that. One of our friends came recovering from a bad flu, so she wasn't up to par and she was almost going to pull out. So we knew that we had to monitor her levels of fitness. Mel and I did the first week together, and so we already had 100 Ks on the legs and were a bit tired, so we had to contend with that. That was the third thing that we did. The fourth thing that we did, we developed routines to execute the plan. So we quickly fell into, all right, how are we going to pull this off? So we started with, let's look at our route plan for the next day in terms of elevation, descent, obstacles, type of terrain, distance, that kind of thing. And we included story time. Story time essentially involved reading the Chapman book, guidebook to the Australian Alpine Walking Track. So Chapman has done a fantastic edition of the guidebook of the actual track, and so there was pretty much a blow-by-blow of what we could expect. And so Lisa elected to read story time, read the track notes, and that was our routine to set us up for the next day. We agreed on a starting time, which I always wanted 8. We got out between 8:30 and 9. Some people take more time to pack and have different morning routines. In any case, we were out by 8:30 or 9, and off we went. And we adjusted our approach to when we had snacks. It was kind of embedded in us. You have a break when you get to the top of a hill. You don't have a break at the beginning of a hill, because you just have the whole break looking at the top of the hill going, we have to climb that next. So we fell into that kind of rituals and routines. The fifth thing that we did was shared responsibility. So it wasn't left to one person to handle navigation. So with the navigation, say, for example, I had the maps, Lisa had the track notes, Mel had the compass, Ali had the Gaia app, as did Mel. And so we cross-referenced all the time in terms of where are we going, what's our plan, how could we, is that what we think that is on the map, and so on. And that worked incredibly well. So we checked our assumptions and our planning with each other and navigated exceptionally well through the bush, which is terrific. Same thing with the food. Like, there was no roster in terms of who was cooking on cooking that night. If you hadn't cooked in a couple of days, it was your turn. If you didn't cook, you did the dishes, and that was easy. So what worked in our favor? Like, all this sounds really sensible, right? So how do you apply this to your workplace? Well, first of all, I needed to acknowledge there's a couple of things that did work in our favor. As a cohort, we've known each other for nearly 30 years. We got to know each other while we worked at Outward Bound. So we all have this base level of experience and skill level living and operating in the bush. So there's a high degree of comfort in the environment, and also a high degree of comfort with each other. We've hung out together, we've had lots of fun together, but we had never bushwalked together. So even though we worked at Outward Bound, we had our own groups that we managed. We hadn't actually done a personal trip together. So that was all new. The other thing that worked in our favor is that we are all extremely accomplished women. 5 of us are business owners, and the 6th is an accomplished senior executive. So achieving was not a core motivator for us. Yes, we had goals. We wanted to do the trip. We wanted to see if we could handle the distance and handle the challenges. And yes, it was good to get up Mount Jagungal, which is a tough mountain and very rewarding. But that was not our core driver. So we were not attached to any particular goals. It's how Mel and I changed our plan quite dramatically in the first week as we adjusted to the weather conditions, because it absolutely soaked us on day 1. So much so when I managed to get some reception and called Rob and said, I'm soaked right through, my rain gear didn't work. And neither did Mel's. He said, yeah, I knew it was pretty wet because they closed the golf course. And we're standing there in our bush gear going, mm-hmm. Yes, we were absolutely drenched. It was a torrential downpour. And then 2 days later, we had snow. So we adjusted our plan a little bit to accommodate the reality of the track which was facing us, harder than we had anticipated and too hard for the plan that I had crafted. So we changed our plan a little bit. But we weren't attached to doing that. We're like, okay, so we didn't walk every step that we had planned. Who cares? That wasn't part of our main objective. So we didn't have ego attached to doing anything or to sticking to a plan or feeling like if we changed the plan we had failed. Like nothing at all like that. That wasn't there. And the other thing that worked in our favor is that we were great at sharing ideas and doing collective decision making or consultative collective decision making. So here's this idea. What do we each think of that? And usually it was consensus ruled. And some discussion over this campsite versus that campsite, but really pretty easy going. So what's useful for you from all of this? Well, first thing, there's 7 points I have for you. Why do something hard? Any type of project, whether it's personal, professional, you need to have an extremely important why. Something that is meaningful and energizing to you and the others on board. Perhaps it's the self-expression of something. Maybe it's a discovery. Maybe it's a creative outlet. Maybe it's the adventure of it all. But something that really you can feel in your body is exciting and important to you. That's why you need to have an important why to do something hard. Second thing you need is an energizer. You need somebody to move the group from inertia into momentum. So largely we say that's leadership, but I prefer to call it an energizing force, particularly if you're working in small groups that you can share leadership responsibilities around. So you need an energizer to get things going, and that helps people then to nominate and fit in responsibilities. The third thing that's useful for you is relationships. And I know this is fundamental to any task that we do, any project that we do in organizations and teams. We need to know each other's why this particular project is important to each of us, our strengths and our challenges. And being able to raise concerns, raise issues, etc. is really super important. And understanding and clarifying and asking questions. On the second last day, for example, it was towards the end of the day, and one of Ali suggested that we deviate from our intended destination and camp at a hut. Why? Because, and this would have meant another 1.5 kilometers of walking. Why do this? Because the weather was looking terrible. There was a big windstorm coming. It was looking pretty grim. Some shelter for our last night would be great. There's lots of advantages to going to that hut. And at that particular time when she asked me, my feet were absolutely killing me. I was having a lot of nerve pain, and my Achilles was acting up, so every step was agony. So adding on another 45 minutes of walking was like, ugh. And she checked in with me later. She said, "Are you okay with this decision?" I said, "Of course I am. I think it's a really sensible decision. Yeah, why go camp in the outdoors at this crappy little site, which we knew wasn't going to be that nice, but was on our way, and deviate and go a little bit extra to a hut." And the hut was amazing. It was newly reconstructed and warm and lovely. Of course, it made sense. I said, why are you concerned about this? She said, "Oh, your face." I'm like, my feet are hurting. So it's easy, even though we've known each other for 30 years, to misinterpret somebody's reaction. So having the courage to check in with each other, not to second guess each other, is all built on relationships. So in your teams, you need to get to know each other. And even if you know each other well, is to double check and to clarify and to check in and have the courage and the space and the environment to speak your truth about what's going on. And even if I had disagreed or had felt disappointed in the decision, I would still feel free to say that. I say, "Oh yeah, I really wanted to go to point X and we went to point Y. It's okay. I agreed to that in the end." So relationships are central to this. That's point 4. That was point 3, sorry. Point 4 in any project is to set parameters, boundaries, and processes. So parameters for your project. For us, it was about exits and safety. Where could we get out if we needed to? Where were our limitations? What were our options if things were harder than we thought or we needed to get out? So having some parameters around what's acceptable rather than pushing on in hope or in spite of physical limitations. We needed boundaries. What were our constraints in terms of our physical limitations as well as our motivations for this particular project? And processes to execute the plan. So we developed little routines about, as I mentioned, for route planning and for creating food and dishes and all that kind of stuff. So we had to do that and develop that on the fly. Number 5, adapt as you go. So I think in the second week, we had only one day that was executed as planned. Every single other day, we changed the plan. So that was awesome. It gave us extreme flexibility, it allowed for adventure that we hadn't planned for, and it allowed us to see things that we hadn't anticipated. So adapt as you go and do not be attached to following the blow by blow of your plan. Number 6, practice appreciation and gratitude. So every night because we are outdoor facilitators, we suggested, let's check in with each other. What was your day? What was the highlight of your day? So we established as a ritual on the first night. Thank you, Ali, for encouraging that. What was your highlight from the day? And the highlights were sometimes similar and sometimes different. For anything from the marvelous views to the amazing food to gratitude to the company, each other's company and support each other had. One particular highlight I had was on the second week heading up towards Jagungal. And it was a cold, blustery, rainy-ish, didn't quite rain, but felt like rain was inclement heading up to Jagungal, which is a peak that is over 2,000 meters and a hard climb. And as we were coming up to the last 30, 50 meters or so, I just started weeping. And my friend Lisa said, she was asking me a question. I turned to her and there's tears coming down my face. She's like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm just so happy." And I was so deeply happy and grateful for the company of these women who'd come on this adventure with me, because I would not have done it on my own. I'm just not that kind of bushwalker. I don't want to walk solo. And so grateful that we pulled this thing off where we could be in this glorious, wild place with these incredible views together and sharing it together. I was just overcome and overwhelmed with gratitude. So we had a deliberate practice of appreciation of each other and of place and of process. And that really helped us slow down and appreciate each moment as we went through. We wanted to suck the marrow out of it, as Mel said, and to really live the best we could during those days that we had together. It was amazing. So practicing appreciation and gratitude helps celebrate the journey and keeps us anchored in the present and enjoying each other's company. And number 7, what's useful for you is have fun along the way. When you do hard things, it's hard. It can hurt physically, mentally, emotionally. And we made time and space to have fun. So there was a morning of dancing where Mel put on her playlist and we just danced as people packed up, just goofed around and just were inappropriate and just had a ball. So make sure that you have fun. Essentially, leadership is a shared adventure. Make sure that you do enjoy it. Make sure that you do live with grace and lead in service. And in the meantime, live well, lead well.
You've been listening to the Zoe Routh Leadership Podcast. To find out more about leadership of the future or to contact Zoe, go to zoerouth.com.